What's the best advice you could give to anybody wanting to get into the sign industry? Go back to college and do something else.
Yep. Go to the military.
Find something better. Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 21 of the Slightly Serious Sign podcast. And as you can see, we're still here at GPX. So if you hear any background noise or people talking in the background, hopefully Rick will be able to edit it out. But if you can't, that's why we're literally here right before the show starts. So everyone's kind of going to be walking in as we go. So hopefully not too much background interference. Hopefully it still sounds good. But with us, I'll let him introduce himself. But the whole reason this came on, he has his own podcast. We wanted to make sure to bring him on to talk about that. He also works for Sign Tracker, so we want to talk about that. So ways software can help your business, as well as a community that you can be a part of and listen to other sign shops. So I just want to start with, who are you? How long you been in the industry, and what are you doing now?
Okay. Well, good morning. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it, you guys. Hopefully your editor can do some magic here. It's a little hot, but my name is Joe Arenella, and I've been in the sign industry for years. Almost 30 years, actually. So, and I think like a lot of people, I fell into the sign industry. I didn't wake up, and I didn't have any plans to be in the sign industry. I just liked marketing. I like sales. And so I found a job at a sign shop, and the rest is history. So from there, I started my own sign shop. So I had a shop for about 11 years. It grew to $10 million plus, sold that to an electrical contracting company. And then from there, I went and worked for a company that did very like artistic sculpture, neon kind of shop. And then did that for 2 years, and then started a sign shop with my daughter. And she's running that successfully. And then I went into Sign Tracker after that.
Okay, perfect. So talking about Sign Tracker, we'll go ahead and talk about a little bit more of the community and that kind of stuff towards the end of the podcast.
Sure.
But you moved on to Sign Tracker. Do you want to just go over kind of what that is? And
yeah. So when I had I guess it started, Sign Tracker technically started when I went to work at a sign shop, and they had no systems in place at all, nothing. So we didn't even have computers on our desk. So we had one shared computer, the salespeople. And so I stayed after work and started building forms to get my work through the shop. And then after a few months, I realized, well, I can do this better on my own, broke off, started my own sign shop. So from there, it was just solving problems, basically. So as my sign shop grew, I started developing systems around the problems. And then ultimately, when I sold my sign shop, I thought, I wonder, other sign shops could use this help. And so that's when Sign Tracker was born. And so from there, it was kind of like a side hustle for 10 years. But then the past few years, it really started taking off. So
what is the primary problem that you think Sign Tracker is trying to solve?
I think it's losing track of jobs is, first of all, the biggest one. So I think with Sign Tracker, one problem we solved is it's a single place where all your jobs can live. And so anytime a customer calls in, whether it's through email, your website, whatever, it's a place where you can put the job. And then the second thing is, what happens to all the components of the job, right? So whether it's the steps on getting jobs done, or it's the files or whatever, Sign Tracker definitely solves that problem. And then you bring in the quoting as well. So
I think the main thing what we see on our side of things, right, is just old school sign shops, right? People that have been doing this forever, right?
Yeah.
Literally. And they've been doing it the same way forever. You bring up like, oh, we have this new tool that can help make your life easier. And they'll be like, oh no, the way I'm doing it works fine.
Yeah.
So the question I have that hopefully is something they would be asking is like, why should I bring in any new software or tools when what I've been doing this whole time has worked?
Exactly. Hold on one second. God, I'm so hot. I'm sorry, you guys.
You're good.
It's just, I think I ran over here in the humidity, so I'm hot. I'm going to answer that question, though.
You're good.
All right. All right. You guys can roll all this into B-roll. I don't care.
It is warm. Without a doubt, it's warm, and it doesn't get warm until you're standing right here, and it's just like as we're in this,
headphones on,
everything.
Yeah, no, you can dub in all my sweaty self. I don't care. I think it's hard to break a habit, right? So if you're, and this comes up a lot. So we deal with, and especially I think there's a big generational shift happening in the sign industry. So matter of fact, at the booth the other day, there was a father and son that came up, and the dad was arguing with his son about, I like doing it on my whiteboard, but I think we're seeing more and more people are saying that that's just not enough. And orders are coming in electronically now, right? So they're getting emails, they're getting, whether it's a form on their website or whatever. And so I think more and more old school sign guys are shifting from the idea that this just doesn't work anymore. I can't have a stack of paper folders. I can't have a whiteboard. I definitely can't keep it in your head. And so they're starting to kind of warm up to the idea of putting their entire, operation on a web-based application. And especially the sign shops that have younger people, their kids coming up, they're just really pushing old school sign guys to adopt technologies for sure.
So who do you think is like the ideal shop that should be looking at Sign Tracker?
I mean, Sign Tracker is pretty flexible. So there's other products out there that are excellent. I wouldn't speak ill of any of them. Well, maybe a couple. But I think for them,
he's on the right podcast.
No, but I mean, some of them are very specific, right? So this one's geared for large electric sign shops. This one's geared for strictly, garment and that kind of thing. I mean, even in Tavo that now owns Sign Tracker has Print Tavo, which is very much geared for the apparel world. But with Sign Tracker, it's pretty flexible. So you can build quoting templates, you can build task templates, you can build flow boards all around whatever types of projects you have. So for us, and I would say it's probably more geared for the small to mid-size sign shop, because when you start getting into like my sign shop where I had 60 employees and we were doing millions of dollars worth of electric signs, you kind of need more of a full ERP system. You got to be willing to invest in that. It's thousands and thousands of dollars. But for the smaller mid-size sign shop, Sign Tracker is great because it's simple enough to set up and adopt. It's simple enough to get your employees on board, and it won't break the bank. It's super affordable. So
you're saying pretty affordable. So what are ways that you think that tool will help like a sign shop either save time or save money? Like what are the main?
I mean, both, so if you, just the amount of time it takes to, like, for example, I was in a sign shop, it was in Texas, and they asked me if I would come and help them set Sign Tracker up. So I was like, yeah, sure. And so I was in, and sadly, they never adopted it. They fell off, but I was in the owner's office. And in the matter of like an hour's time, at least 5 or 6 people came into the office and asked, what am I doing next? How much is this going to cost? I mean, just the time for an owner to deal with that kind of stuff, it wipes out your day. So adopting a system like this that allows other folks in the shop to know exactly what they need to do without bugging the management or a project manager or the owner, or maybe other people can do quotes on the simpler products like banners and yard signs and leave the more complex quoting to the owner. So there's just lots of ways. Plus just lost jobs. If you, that email came in 2 weeks ago and I didn't get it on a board or didn't get it in the system. So
you say you're talking about quoting jobs, the kind of thing. Is that one of the features in there? Is pricing?
Yep, it's one of the big features. So in the way it works in Sign Tracker, it's pretty simple. So you basically you can enter all your materials in, and what's nice is you can have those feed into worksheets. So you can have all your materials, and you can have a set markup for materials. So whatever that may be, whether it's 100% markup. And in the material section, there's also a little markup tool for waste and that's handling and that sort of thing, or additional profit. Then you have your labor items, and you might have a second set of markups for that. So maybe you're working with your CPA and figuring out what your labor burden is. And you say, okay, it costs me $50 an hour for a guy to show up to work in the shop. And my markup on top of that is like, 50% or 60% or whatever it may be. So you can have separate sets of markups. So you have labor, you have material items, labor items, and then also Sign Tracker allows sign shops, which a lot of them do, formula items. Formula pricing can be things like a completed banner, hemmed, grommet, printed, $5 a square foot. So you can do that kind of pricing. But those items feed into worksheet templates that you can build basically a quoting template for any kind of project, right? Or any kind of product. So you can have literally templates for 4x8, 5x10, 6x12 banners, yard signs, all that. And then you can also build templates out for complex projects like channel letters. So you might list all your materials, all your labor, all your install items. And then, if you're an estimator, you're just looking at the drawing, you enter in the different quantities depending on what you're building, and it spits out a price that goes onto a contract that you can send to a customer. And then the customer, has like a mini DocuSign tool built in, so the customer can sign off on it. Everyone gets email alerts. And then from there, it goes into production.
So just hearing it, what I think about first is like, if you're running a shop where you have, maybe it's just the owner and a few employees, right? Or it's an owner and one person below them and then employees that are doing it. What it allows you to do is kind of skip where you're always the bottleneck for quoting on jobs.
Absolutely.
Or the one that has to like go through and spec it all out and that kind of stuff, where if obviously there's a work ahead of time, right? You're gonna have to set up all that pricing to get started. But the benefit would be if somebody comes in, right, especially on small stuff, right? Like someone comes in and they're like, hey, I need this size banner, or I need 12 yard signs, or I need all that small stuff, where typically they still have to come to you and be like, hey, they need 12. Can you give me an ideal price? And then you have to give it to them, versus the owner can just build those in, and then when someone shows up, it could be anybody, right? It could be somebody that's new to the shop. It could
be the office manager, right?
Type it into the computer and it tells me the price, and then send it away. And as long as you trust those numbers.
What I'm hearing basically, if you can't take a vacation day, if you're an owner, you can't take a vacation day, you can't take a vacation week because everything has to go through you, probably get some software and you probably go on vacation or something, because that's ideally what you're talking about is you got one person, and that's, we've been that way before too. You have one person that has to help with the quoting, has to help with the job, has to help with, even the scheduling. Right. And, and when software can really do it for you. And we've seen it. I mean, even our industry, the Franklin planner is now almost gone, where we use,
I lived off a Franklin planner.
See, that was the old. That was what you had back in the day.
That was what carry your binder around with you.
And now that all that same information is right in your phone through our, we use Web Presented. It's all in our system. So
I mean, I hear this a lot because a lot of times people will come to us and they're either the project manager or a salesperson at a sign shop, and they're kind of tired of having to chase the owner around. Well, how are you guys doing a quoting now? It's all in the owner's head. I can't get a price out the door until I can nail him down, and he's so busy or she's so busy. They're out and about doing their stuff. I mean, I am seeing less of that. There is definitely, sign shops now are embracing technology, that's for sure. But I think with Sign Tracker, we've worked, if we had developed Sign Tracker the way I had initially envisioned it to be developed, it would have been so bloated and overdeveloped. But thankfully, software is so expensive to develop that I was only able to kind of slowly inch along. But what was great about that was, we got a basic product out there and then started talking to sign shops and realizing they really just need a basic product. If it's too complicated and it tries to be all things for all shops, it's expensive to maintain. It's expensive even for shops to have and maintain. So ours is really set up for the shop that a lot of owner operators, right? So they don't have all data sit in front of the computer. They might have time to get a few quotes out or have the simple quote set up for other staff people. But generally they're kind of getting the information they need, doing a quote here and there, moving a job on the board, and then going to make signs or install signs. So they're owner operators, a lot of them.
Okay. And what is like the rough cost of Sign Tracker? So
Sign Tracker is probably we haven't really raised our prices in a decade, So right now it's $49 a month for 2 users, unlimited, no startup fees, completely integrates with QuickBooks. That's not everything's included. Storage, everything's included. That's 2 users. 3 to 5 users, $99, and then unlimited, all things unlimited, is $149. All those prices are going to probably go up about $20, $30 a month.
It seems very inexpensive to me.
It is. It's very affordable.
When you're talking about an owner, if you can't save yourself, you better be paying yourself more than $50 an hour. But if you can't save yourself 2 hours a month and be able to have everybody on it, better change your business plan.
I mean, we have, sorry to interrupt the podcast, but we want to have a special episode for episode 25, and we want to do Q&A. So if you have questions, send them to podcast@wensco.com. If you send them to that email, I'll get them. We'll go through them on the air. If it's anybody that's been on the podcast, any of my brothers, anyone you've seen, Domingo, Mike, anybody like that, welcome to send them in. If it's to somebody you even haven't seen on the podcast yet, but you have questions for them, we'll bring them on to answer your questions. So send them in. Again, podcast@onesco.com. You can also send them out on socials, or if you know if it's anywhere, if you have our phone numbers, emails, send them. I don't care where you send them as long as they get to me, and we'll be happy to answer them live, potentially live on episode 25. So send in your questions. Again, podcast@onesco.com. And now we'll get back to the episode. We have access to a tool, right? A job management tool. I won't say the name because I don't want to, but it's a couple $1,000s a year, right? Just to start. That doesn't include anything else, right? It's just like, if you want it, starting price is this. And you're talking yours is, that's what, $600 a year for 2 users. So
hey, I feel like if it keeps you from screwing up a banner job, it paid for itself.
Yeah, literally. How small? Yeah,
exactly. That's exactly right. And I feel like, so a lot of the owners, and I'll call you guys out right now, like, you want to feel important because you want to be the guy they have to come to for the quoting. You want to be the guy they have to come to. Like, a lot of business owners are that way. That's just how they are. But like, look, you're not smarter than the software. Yeah. That's as simple as it gets. You got to understand, like, those computers are smarter than you. They can do it better than you, and you got to trust them. And that's really where we're boiled down to, is like, you got to get these owners to, like, hey, the software can do this stuff for me, which can free me up to go sell more jobs.
Yes, and have a life.
Yes, exactly right.
Because it's not scalable to have every single part of your shop run through you. It's just not scalable. And also, it doesn't send a great message to your employees, right? I mean, you want to try to, a sign shop seems to have such a struggle with, how do I get good employees? Well, you have to treat them like they're good and trust them and kind of give them ownership of the process. You can't do that if it's all floating in your head, or even if it's just on a whiteboard. You have to have a system in place, whether it's Sign Tracker or something else, where everyone can access that data and be responsible for moving it through that system.
Exactly right.
I think if you said it earlier, but if you can't be away from your phone for 8 hours, then you probably should start looking at some software.
Yeah,
like I imagine there's a lot of owner operators you're talking, right? So it's couple owns the business. They may have 3 or 4 employees maybe under them, and they can never be away from their phone, right? Because someone comes in, they need a quote, it's them, right? They are the bottleneck of the business. You're still going to be even if you get Sign Tracker, when you're that small, you're always going to be the bottleneck, but it's going to relieve some of that stress, right? Where you might not need to have your phone for one day, right? If you leave on Friday and someone comes in and they need a quote, your people can do it. And as long as you trusted the numbers that you put into the software, because you're the one that's controlling it, then they should be able to manage that part of the business for you.
And I do believe a lot of owners, there'll be one screw up, like, that job came in, we completely quoted it wrong. You got to understand, with software, once in a while, there's going to be a screw up because you're not going to control everything. You just got to accept that screw up and be like, okay, well, it did 99 right, did 1 wrong. But a lot of owners will be like, it did that one, so now I just got to take it back over. Well, no, that's not how it works. Like, you're gonna have a screw up here or there in your software, because not everything can possibly be covered, but 99% will be.
But you're probably looking over that too when you're not using software, right? Someone comes in and they want 50 yard signs, and you go, okay, and you quote it, and then it turns out they wanted double-sided, and in your head you only quoted them for single-sided. So then your labor, goes up, your cost of ink goes up, or vinyl, however you're doing it. And you didn't think about that, right? You're doing that now without the software. Like, you're already going to mess up jobs just because the benefit of the software is that you have to input all the variables, right? Meaning you're going to have to ask all of the questions, right? So you're going to have to go through the list and say, what is it? Is it double-sided, long-term, short-term? All of those questions you're going to have to ask because you have to input them into the software, versus otherwise, I always think about it in terms of like vinyl graphics, right? Like, if you find out someone wants a vehicle wrapped and you quote it, but it turns out that it's just like for a political parade, right? They're only going to have it on there for an hour, and you quoted it as if it was a 7-year wrap, right? That's a huge loss, right? Because you're going to way quote them high, when another shop would be like, temporary graphics, easy, cheap vinyl, we'll put it on, done, no problem at all. And you're probably missing that now if you're not asking the right questions, and the software is going to force you to ask the right questions when you quote out the job. So
plus, I think too, the benefit of having a system like Sign Tracker, or like I said, something else, is you can do a data dump out of your brain. Like, for an owner, if you're walking around all the time having that to-do list just hammering you, it's hard. It's hard to relax. It's hard to let go, but if you can have a place where it all goes, then you're not, even as the owner, the only one responsible for getting back with that customer or making sure that job gets out on time. So anyway, I encourage people to take a look at Sign Tracker or whatever else is out there,
Yeah, I mean, that's perfect. So we can switch from there. So besides Sign Tracker, You are, I don't even know what to call it, behind the signs.
Behind the signs, yeah.
The founder, I guess I'll put it that way. Of
moderator, whatever.
Yeah. So if you want to just go through like what that is and like ways that people can.
So, we Sign Tracker at one point, before we were acquired by, that's why I'm wearing this avocado shirt here, Inktober, but we were acquired by Inktober. So we grew this thing, and even my sign shop was the same thing. Like, I felt like an island a lot of times. It was hard to get answers to questions. I didn't have, sign shops are super competitive with each other, so there's that trust thing that doesn't happen a lot. And I didn't know of things like, getting a mentor, or getting into a mastermind group or anything like that. So, when I grew my sign shop, it was a lot of trial and error, more error than anything else, but I'm grateful it grew and we did well. And I sort of went down that same path with Sign Tracker. And it wasn't until, we were in business like 8 years that we ended up getting into a tech accelerator, because I had to have a mind, shift on like, hey, I'm a sign guy, but now I'm also a software person. And so when we get into this tech accelerator, we get into a mastermind group and mentoring and all that. And so I decided that what if we had a group on Facebook that sort of provided those things? I mean, yeah, people can poop talk on there. There's some other sites out there on Facebook that are fun and they're like that. And there's a little bit of that going on behind the signs too. But for the most part, our slogan is elevating the sign industry together. So I thought, what if we could create this safe space where sign shop owners could get some resources for free, but be able to ask questions about how to do certain things or grow their business or market their business or quote certain things and not be slammed, And so we started it a little over a year ago, and I was thinking, this will be kind of fun. I'll get on and I'll answer questions and maybe other people will get on. And it has grown over 10,000 followers in a year. And we started tracking 6 months into it, because we ask questions when they sign up, who is actually signing up. 90% of the folks signing up in that group are owners. And so the industry knowledge exchange that's happening there is great. The questions that are coming in are great. So I live in that, I live in behind the signs right now. And we started a podcast a few months into it, and we did probably a dozen or so episodes. But then we sort of started getting super busy with the acquisition. And so we shelved it, and we just rebooted it and this time around, I'm doing it with my daughter, Liz. And like I said, she's a sign shop owner. So we've recorded 2 episodes so far. They're in the can. They're cleaned up. So we're going to release them here in the next couple of weeks and then start every other week. Doing a podcast with your kid, I'm finding that I'm actually spending about 45 minutes being ridiculed by my daughter for the most part. It's definitely like an old school, new school vibe with the two of us, but yeah, even with the podcast, it's hopefully it's an exchange of knowledge, and that's what like what you guys are doing.
Yeah,
awesome.
We're just basically informing people, not just behind the scenes, but like there's a lot of stuff that you just don't, what you don't know, you don't know.
Yeah.
And that's why we started this. We started like give people more choices, give people more things to listen to, talk about new products, talk to people like you that they might not even know, hey, this software actually exists. And that's really where we started it. And then it's obviously we called it Slightly Serious because I'm part of it and I'm not the most serious.
I love the name actually.
Person in there, but no, it's been fun with Tyler too. Like he's the one that keeps it under. Like I had to do one episode with him, and I'm just like, who's going to keep this under like in a row? Like I'm just the guy that adds the comments here or there. I'm not the.
I mean, I think the thing about what you guys are doing and what we're doing with Behind the Signs is just, where do you show up at community college? I want to be a sign person. There's really not a lot. There's educational opportunities with ISA and obviously these shows, but there's just not a lot of places for sign shops to go, I don't think, to really hear stories about how it works.
Yeah.
And so what you guys are doing is awesome. I'd like to think what we're doing with Behind the Signs is pretty cool too, So, and with Sign Tracker, but anyway,
yeah.
So that's Behind the Signs. We're on Facebook right now. Ultimately, we're going to have a little blog website and all that. But even on Facebook, if you get on there, we have a file section, which you're allowed to have in groups. And I've thrown a ton of stuff up there, like employee handbooks, labor rate calculators, just tools that sign shops can, all free. Just grab them. So if you join the group, you'll just go to the file section. Tons of resources in there for you.
I think it's huge if you are newer to the industry, like you were saying, for like we have college, we have trade schools, but for the sign industry, like there's not really a like set like apprenticeship program or
There's
anything.
not.
I just saw someone post
we
about
have
it
it.
in one of the groups.
We have it.
Do we?
It's kindergarten arts and crafts.
Yeah, right.
Hey, you were good at, look at that picture you brought home. Like Nova's a really good drawer. I could be in the sign industry.
Yeah, we have a sticker. It's literally right there actually behind him, but it says Signman, and the definition is adults who do arts and crafts. Because
I'm going to grab one
I
of those.
think it's a good summary of like, that's like the prerequisite, right? Like a lot of them are people who are into arts, into designing, and where do you go? Like when it's like, oh, you got an art degree, what are you going to do with it?
Yeah.
A bunch of those people end up in the sign industry. I don't think people even realize that when someone's like, I went to school for graphic design, like, oh, what are you going to do? You're going to go work for a tech startup and like and they'll be like, bunch of those people end up in the sign industry. Like there's so much into the design of the signs and how they look and how they actually go up.
Yeah.
And I don't think a lot of people know about it, right?
They
There's
don't.
not a set place to go and find that information now.
Yeah, they don't. And like my daughter's sign shop, for example, their whole focus is design. You know, they consider themselves a design firm that does signs. But I was just invited recently to a community college open house where was all these designers that were graduating a 2-year design program. And they asked me to come, and they had their portfolios and all that. So you'd go to these tables and sit down in front of designers. And I just told them about the sign industry. Not a single one even thought about pursuing a career in the sign industry, which is crazy.
Well, you hear, I mean, people always ask, oh, well, what do you do? I'm like, man, I sell raw materials to the sign industry. Like the sign industry, like, yeah, when you drive down the road and you see all these signs, someone has to supply those people.
Yeah.
Oh, I've never thought about that before.
Yeah.
So it's, but I love the sign industry because I am not like, there's no design part of my entire brain. There's no building part of my, like I couldn't build a birdhouse. I can't even color within the lines. I can't draw a picture. So like all these people are way more creative than me. And so I just love it because they can do something I can't do.
Yeah.
And what I can do is pick stuff up and bring it to people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Put it out of a
I'm the same. I'm like, I can sell stuff, you know. I can talk my way through the processes just because I've owned sign shops over the years. But if you ask me tomorrow to go in a shop and build a sign, I'd be like, no.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's crazy how many, like, even if you would call them trades, fit within the sign industry, right?
Oh,
like
so
you
many.
need sales and marketing, you need fabrication.
Yeah.
So a lot of like welding, that kind of stuff. Another trade ends up in the sign industry, making these
Electricians,
cabinets.
installation,
Yep.
so much.
So it's crazy how many of those, and then like we said, a lot of the art students end up in the sign industry because there's so much work that's needed there. And if you know somebody that's graduating with an art degree, I guarantee there's a sign shop that wants to hire them.
That's the one thing that comes up on Behind the Signs, I think. Well, installers too, but it comes up all the time on Behind the Signs. I'm desperately looking for design help.
Yep.
You know, so
They're looking at hiring versus subbing it out and that whole discussion. But I think having someone in-house, like it's probably a slightly easier than you think to find somebody. They're just not looking for that job, right? So it's kind of depending where you're looking. But I guarantee if you reach out to the schools and are like, hey, anyone graduating, we're looking for a graphic designer, right? And we'll pay them.
Yeah.
And a lot of these high schools nowadays, we're putting a lot of printers in high schools that are teaching them in high school. And we're grabbing people out of high school to work at our shop, you know, because our local high school has a printer. They just do like the banners for the schools and that kind of stuff. But like we grab those people. Yeah. Like, and that's just for our side of it. But then we'll push them off to, you know, other sign shops at some point. So,
I mean, I think the sign industry, you can have a great career in the sign industry. I always joke, people will ask me, well, how did you get into the sign business? And I like to always say, well, one day I was praying and I asked God to show me a sign. Very funny, very funny. But honestly, I completely stumbled into it and I've had a great career. It's almost 30 years now. And you know, after owning a few shops and working for other shops, and of course the sign tracker gig has given me the opportunity to talk to hundreds and hundreds of different types of shops over the years. And I just love it. I think it's great. But I think realistically too, I mean, I know there's people that can build great wealth, you know, in the sign industry. They build big companies, but the majority of companies, I think if you can just run the business, you know, be organized, run it smart, have the right kind of clients that respect your work, you can make a nice living in the sign industry without killing yourself.
I think that's a perfect summary to this whole episode.
Yeah. Amen to that.
It's great. So just to wrap up, where can they find out about Behind the Signs? Where can they find out about Sign Tracker?
Sure. So I'll give a little plug for Inktovo, my current parent
come closer.
company.
Yeah,
Oh yeah.
now
Sorry.
we got a boatload of background
Let's
noise.
do that. Okay, Inktovo. You can go to inktovo.com, and there you can learn about Sign Tracker. You can learn about Printavo, Inksoft, and Graphics Flow, which are all great products for the sign industry. And then Behind the Signs, just find us on Facebook. Facebook.
Trying to get
Behind
those
the
guys to
Signs.
5 minutes and turn the music off.
Facebook Behind the Signs group. Join. Would love to have you and share
Perfect.
your work and share your wisdom.
Thank you.
All right, that's all I got.
I got them to turn their music off.
I think we still got it too, so I think we'll be okay. I could hear you, so I'm assuming Rick will have to edit it out. So sorry, Rick.
Yeah, sorry, Rick.
Sorry,
And
Rick. We apologize.
does anybody want to really hear what Joe has to say?
Oh, I'm sure they do. So seriously, thanks for coming on. We appreciate it. I know this worked out great that we're both here at the show. So we appreciate you coming out. And like I said, find him on Facebook. Find out about Sign Tracker. If you have questions and you can't find what he's looking for, just reach out to us. We'll get you in touch.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And also I want to invite you guys, if you're not already following us on Behind the Signs, I mean, anytime you guys have products you want to talk about that would help sign shops understand, what's new and great out there or what they can do with certain things. And then also please, whenever you guys release a podcast episode, post it on there. And so our group can find you guys as well.
Perfect. We'll
All
do
right.
that.
All right, guys.
But thank you very
Thank
much.
you guys.
Hopefully this episode was great.
Yeah.
And we'll see you in the next episode, guys.
Bye, guys.
Thanks.
Bye.
Goodbye.